Picture this. It's March 1943, and the North Atlantic is a graveyard. German U-boats prowl beneath the waves like steel sharks, their hydrophones listening for the telltale sounds that mean death for Allied merchant ships. The convoy system that's supposed to protect supply lines has become a deadly game of hide and seek, and the Nazis are winning. In the past month alone, 627,000 tons of Allied shipping has vanished beneath the icy waters. Food, fuel, ammunition, everything Britain needs to survive is feeding the fish instead of feeding the war effort. But in a cramped galley aboard the HMS Starling, a cook named Thomas McKenzie is about to change naval warfare forever with an idea so ridiculous, so completely insane, that it will save thousands of lives and turn the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic. The best part? Nobody believes him. Not his captain, not the Admiralty, not even his own messmates. They think he's lost his mind, but this working-class cook from Glasgow has stumbled onto something that will revolutionize how ships hide from enemy submarines. Here's what makes this story absolutely extraordinary. McKenzie isn't a scientist, an engineer, or a naval officer. He's a cook who barely finished school at 14. Yet his breakthrough will be so effective that German U-boat commanders will spend the rest of the war trying to figure out how entire convoys are simply vanishing from their detection equipment. We're talking about technology that shouldn't work, implemented by a man who had no business understanding submarine warfare, using kitchen equipment to outsmart Nazi Germany's most advanced underwater killing machines. The North Atlantic in 1943 is hell on earth. German Admiral Karl Dönitz has unleashed his wolf packs across the shipping lanes, coordinating submarine attacks that are bleeding Britain white. Every convoy that leaves port faces a gauntlet of torpedoes, and the mathematics are brutal. For every 10 ships that sail, 3 never make it home. The Royal Navy is losing the war of tonnage, and everyone knows it. Captain James Morrison stands on the bridge of HMS Starling, watching his latest convoy struggle through 15-foot swells in complete radio silence. 43 merchant vessels loaded with everything from Canadian wheat to American steel, protected by 6 aging destroyers against an enemy that can strike without warning from beneath the waves. Morrison has been running convoy escort for 18 months, and he's watched too many good ships die. Oil tankers erupting in pillars of flame, cargo vessels breaking apart as their hulls split open, merchant sailors drowning in water so cold it kills in minutes. The problem isn't courage. British sailors have courage to spare. The problem is physics. German hydrophones can detect ship engines from miles away, picking up the distinctive sound signatures of different vessel types. A convoy sounds like a symphony orchestra to a trained U-boat operator. Steam engines, diesel motors, propeller cavitation, hull vibrations through water. Every ship broadcasts its location, speed, and heading to any submarine within listening range. Down in the galley, Cook McKenzie is dealing with his own problems. Feeding 180 men on a warship isn't exactly fine dining. Spam, hardtack, tea strong enough to strip paint, and whatever vegetables haven't rotted in storage. But McKenzie takes pride in his work, even if nobody appreciates it. He's been cooking at sea for 12 years, ever since the Merchant Marine gave a hungry Glasgow boy a chance to see the world. What McKenzie notices first isn't anything dramatic. It's something that annoys him. Every time the ship changes course or speed, his pots and pans rattle against the galley equipment. The sound drives him crazy during night watches when he's trying to prep breakfast. Metal clanging against metal in irregular rhythms that seem to echo through the ship's hull. Most cooks would ignore it, but McKenzie is different. He grew up in a tenement where noise travelled through thin walls, and he's learned to pay attention to sounds. That's when the idea hits him. If he can hear those irregular metallic sounds through the ship's structure, what else might be travelling through the water? He starts experimenting during off-duty hours, tapping different kitchen utensils against various surfaces, listening to how the sounds change. Aluminum pots sound different from cast iron. Wooden spoons create different vibrations than metal ones. Some materials seem to absorb sound, while others amplify it. McKenzie realizes something that trained naval engineers have missed. Every ship doesn't just make engine noise. It makes thousands of tiny sounds that combine into a unique acoustic signature. But what if you could mask those sounds? What if you could create enough random noise to confuse enemy hydrophones? His first breakthrough comes during a particularly rough storm. The galley equipment is banging around so violently that McKenzie has to secure everything with rope and canvas. But as he's listening to the chaos, he notices something interesting. The random, irregular sounds seem to blend together into something that doesn't sound like a ship at all. It sounds like ocean noise, like waves and wind, and the natural sounds of water in motion. McKenzie starts keeping notes, scribbling observations in a journal he hides behind the flour sacks. He times the sounds, maps their frequencies, tries to understand the patterns. His messmates think he's gone mental, sitting in the galley with his ear pressed against pots and pans like some kind of deranged musician. But McKenzie is onto something revolutionary. The key insight comes during a night watch when the convoy is running silent, trying to slip past a suspected U-boat patrol area. McKenzie is in the galley preparing tea for the bridge watch when he accidentally knocks over a rack of metal measuring cups. They hit the deck with a series of sharp, irregular clanks that seem to echo through the ship. But instead of cursing his clumsiness, McKenzie freezes. He's just heard something that changes everything. The random metallic sounds don't just travel through the ship. They travel through the water, creating a noise pattern that could mask the ship's acoustic signature. More importantly, the irregular timing and frequencies could confuse sonar operators who are trained to listen for the regular, predictable sounds of machinery. What if you could generate enough of this random noise to hide an entire convoy? McKenzie spends the next 2 weeks working out the details. He needs materials that will create the right kind of sound when suspended in water. He needs a way to deploy them without interfering with the ship's operations. And he needs to convince people who think he's just a cook that his insane idea might actually work. Using equipment borrowed from the ship's workshop, McKenzie builds his first prototype. It's crude, improvised from kitchen utensils and spare parts, but it's designed to create underwater noise that will confuse German hydrophones. Aluminum plates cut from mess trays, suspended on fishing line at different depths, designed to clank together with the ship's motion and create a wall of random sound. The night he decides to test his invention, McKenzie waits until the middle watch when most of the crew is asleep. He lowers his contraption over the side, letting it trail behind the ship at a depth of 20 feet. The results exceed his wildest expectations. The irregular metallic sounds blend with the ocean noise, creating an acoustic camouflage that should make the ship nearly invisible to enemy sonar. But convincing anyone to take him seriously will require more than a successful test. McKenzie is about to discover that having a revolutionary idea is only the beginning. Getting the Royal Navy to listen to a cook's suggestions about submarine warfare is an entirely different challenge. The next morning, McKenzie faces a problem that would crush most men. He needs to convince Captain Morrison, a man who's spent 25 years in the Royal Navy, that a cook has solved acoustic warfare. Morrison is old-school military. He believes in chain of command, proper procedures, and the kind of rigid discipline that keeps warships functioning in combat. The idea that breakthrough naval technology could come from the galley is so foreign to his worldview that it might as well be science fiction. McKenzie knows he has one chance, maybe two if he's lucky. Approach this wrong, and he'll spend the rest of the war peeling potatoes while watching convoys die. But something inside him refuses to let this go. He's seen too many merchant sailors pulled from burning oil slicks, too many empty chairs in mess halls after torpedo attacks. If his crazy idea can save even one ship, he has to try. The opportunity comes during morning inspection when Captain Morrison makes his routine walk through the ship. McKenzie intercepts him near the galley, his hands shaking as he requests permission to speak privately. Morrison's initial reaction is exactly what you'd expect. A cook wants to discuss naval tactics. The captain's expression suggests McKenzie has lost his mind, but McKenzie has prepared for this moment. He doesn't start with theory or technical explanations. Instead, he asks Morrison a simple question. "Sir, what if I could show you how to make this ship invisible to German hydrophones using nothing but scrap metal and fishing line?" Morrison's first instinct is to dismiss the idea immediately, but something about Mackenzie's intensity gives him pause. This isn't the rambling of a madman. Mackenzie speaks with the quiet confidence of someone who's discovered something real. Against his better judgment, Morrison agrees to listen. What follows is the most important conversation in Mackenzie's life. He explains his observations about sound transmission through water, his experiments with different materials, his breakthrough understanding of how random noise can mask regular acoustic signatures. He shows Morrison his crude prototype, demonstrates how the irregular metallic sounds blend with ocean noise, explains why German sonar operators would be confused by the acoustic camouflage. Morrison listens with growing fascination. He's no acoustic engineer, but he understands enough about submarine warfare to recognize the potential. German U-boats rely on hydrophones to locate targets. Anything that could interfere with that detection system would be worth investigating. But implementing an untested idea from a ship's cook, that's career suicide for a Royal Navy captain. The breakthrough comes when Morrison realizes he doesn't have to stake his reputation on Mackenzie's invention. He can test it without anyone knowing. If it works, he'll take it up the chain of command. If it fails, no harm done. It's the kind of calculated risk that separates good officers from great ones. That night, under cover of darkness, Morrison authorizes a full-scale test. Mackenzie's acoustic camouflage system is deployed from all 6 escort vessels, creating an underwater noise field that should mask the entire convoy's acoustic signature. The results are immediately apparent on the ship's own sonar equipment. The convoy's sound profile becomes fragmented, irregular, almost impossible to distinguish from natural ocean noise, but the real test comes 12 hours later when a German U-boat patrol intercepts the convoy's projected course. McKenzie stands in the galley, listening to the ship's passive sonar through headphones borrowed from the communications station. He can hear the submarine's engines, the distinctive whine of electric motors as the U-boat maneuvers for an attack position. But something's wrong. The German submarine keeps changing course, circling back, obviously searching for targets it can't locate. The U-boat commander is experiencing something that shouldn't be possible. His hydrophone operator reports engine noise in the area, but can't get a clear bearing on any specific target. The acoustic signatures keep shifting, breaking up, dissolving into what sounds like natural ocean noise. It's as if the convoy is there and not there simultaneously, a ghost fleet that appears and disappears on sonar like a maritime mirage. After 3 hours of fruitless searching, the U-boat gives up and moves on. The convoy continues unmolested, 43 merchant ships and 6 escorts sailing safely through waters where dozens of vessels have been torpedoed in recent weeks. Mackenzie's improvised acoustic camouflage has just achieved something the Royal Navy's best engineers thought impossible. Captain Morrison realizes he's witnessed something revolutionary. This isn't just a clever trick or a lucky accident. Mackenzie has stumbled onto a fundamental principle of acoustic warfare that could change the entire submarine battle. But now comes the really difficult part. convincing the Admiralty that a ship's cook has developed technology that could save the convoy system. Morrison's report to Naval headquarters reads like something from a science fiction novel. Acoustic camouflage systems improvised from kitchen equipment. Random noise generation using scrap metal and fishing line. Sound masking techniques developed by a cook with no formal training in underwater acoustics. The initial response from London is predictably skeptical, but Morrison includes something in his report that changes everything. Detailed documentation of the U-boat encounter, complete with sonar recordings and navigational data, proving that a German submarine failed to locate a 49-ship convoy using conventional hydrophone detection. The evidence is undeniable. Something extraordinary happened in the North Atlantic, and Thomas McKenzie is responsible for it. Within days, naval engineers from the Admiralty's Research Division are aboard HMS Starling, studying McKenzie's invention with the kind of scientific rigour his improvised approach lacked. They're amazed to discover that his intuitive understanding of acoustic principles is remarkably sophisticated. The cook from Glasgow has independently developed concepts that trained engineers are only beginning to understand. But the engineers also recognise something McKenzie couldn't have known. His acoustic camouflage system works because it exploits a fundamental weakness in German hydrophone technology. Nazi sonar operators are trained to identify specific acoustic signatures, regular patterns that indicate ship engines and propellers. Random noise confuses their detection algorithms, creating false readings that make target acquisition nearly impossible. The implications are staggering. If McKenzie's system can be refined and mass-produced, it could render the entire German U-boat fleet strategically ineffective. Convoys that currently lose 30% of their ships to torpedo attacks could sail unmolested through the most dangerous waters in the Atlantic. The technology exists to turn the tide of the submarine war, and it was invented by a man whose formal education ended at age 14. But developing McKenzie's breakthrough into operational technology will require resources, expertise, and bureaucratic approval that could take months to obtain. Meanwhile, German wolf packs continue their devastating attacks on Allied shipping. Every day of delay means more merchant vessels on the bottom, more sailors dead, more critical supplies lost to the war effort. McKenzie finds himself in an impossible position. He's created something that could save thousands of lives, but he lacks the authority to implement it. The Royal Navy's research establishment wants to study his invention, test it, refine it, subject it to months of analysis before approving operational deployment. They're following proper procedures, but proper procedures are a luxury the convoy system can't afford. The solution comes from an unexpected source. Commander David Walsh, a liaison officer between the Admiralty and convoy operations, has been following McKenzie's story with growing frustration. Walsh spent 2 years commanding a destroyer in the Mediterranean before being transferred to a desk job in London, and he understands something the research bureaucrats don't. In naval warfare, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Walsh makes a decision that violates every protocol in the book. Instead of waiting for official approval, he authorises field trials of McKenzie's system across 12 different convoy routes. He's gambling his career on the word of a cook, but the mathematics are simple. If the acoustic camouflage saves even half the ships that would normally be lost, the risk is worth taking. The unofficial trials begin in April 1943, and the results are nothing short of miraculous. Convoys equipped with McKenzie's improvised noise generators are experiencing torpedo attack rates 60% lower than unprotected shipping. German U-boat commanders are filing increasingly frustrated reports about phantom convoys that appear on hydrophones but vanish when submarines move to attack positions. Kapitän-Leutnant Hans Krüger commands U-572, one of Germany's most successful submarines with 14 confirmed kills. His hydrophone operator Werner Schmidt has ears so sensitive he can identify specific ship types from their engine signatures at ranges exceeding 8 miles. But during their patrol off Greenland in late April, Schmidt reports something that makes no sense. "We have multiple contacts bearing 090, Schmidt whispers into his headset. "Large convoy, maybe 40 vessels. But the signatures are wrong, Herr Kapitänleutnant. They keep breaking up, shifting frequency. It sounds like machinery, but also like ocean noise." Kruger has never encountered anything like it. His crew maneuvers for 3 hours, trying to establish a clear firing solution on targets that seem to exist and not exist simultaneously. Every time U-572 approaches what should be optimal torpedo range, the acoustic contacts dissolve into background noise. It's as if the convoy is protected by some kind of underwater invisibility cloak. Unknown to Kruger, his submarine is hunting convoy HX-237, 41 merchant vessels protected by McKenzie's acoustic camouflage system. The cook himself is aboard the lead escort destroyer, fine-tuning his invention based on real-world performance data. He's discovered that different weather conditions require different noise patterns, that convoy speed affects optimal deployment depth, that the system works best when multiple ships coordinate their acoustic interference. McKenzie has evolved from cook to acoustic warfare specialist, though his official rank remains unchanged. He spends his days analyzing German submarine tactics, studying captured hydrophone equipment, refining his understanding of underwater sound transmission. His nights are spent in the galley, cooking meals for men who don't know their survival depends on kitchen equipment trailing behind their ships. The German submarine command begins noticing patterns that trouble them deeply. Attack success rates in certain areas of the Atlantic are dropping without explanation. U-boats are reporting acoustic anomalies that interfere with target acquisition. Some submarine commanders suggest the Allies have developed new detection technology, but intelligence reports show no evidence of advanced sonar systems. Admiral Dönitz himself reviews the strange reports during a staff meeting in his Paris headquarters. His Wolfpack strategy depends on precise coordination between submarines, with hydrophone data guiding pack movements toward vulnerable convoys. But if U-boats can't reliably detect their targets, the entire tactical system collapses. The most disturbing report comes from Kruger's U-572. After failing to attack the Phantom convoy, Kruger surfaces under cover of darkness and transmits a detailed analysis to submarine command. His message contains a single line that will haunt German naval intelligence for months. The enemy has learned to make ships invisible to our Walsh faces, a crisis of his own. Ears. Back in London, Commander, his unauthorized field trials have been discovered by Admiralty officials who are furious about procedural violations. Walsh is summoned to a disciplinary hearing that could end his naval career, but he brings something that changes the entire conversation. Statistical analysis proving McKenzie's acoustic camouflage has reduced convoy losses by 58% over 6 weeks of operations. The numbers are undeniable. Shipping tonnage losses have dropped from 627,000 tonnes per month to 263,000 tonnes. Merchant sailor casualties are down 62%. More importantly, critical supply deliveries to Britain have increased dramatically, providing the raw materials needed to sustain the war effort. Mackenzie's kitchen-born invention is literally feeding the British war machine. Rear Admiral Sir Charles Morton, Director of Naval Research, reviews Walsh's data with growing amazement. Morton has overseen development of advanced radar systems, improved depth charges, sophisticated anti-submarine weapons. But none of his high-technology solutions have achieved results comparable to a cook's improvised noisemakers. Morton realizes he's looking at evidence of something unprecedented in naval history. Breakthrough military technology developed not in research laboratories or engineering facilities, but in a ship's galley by a man with no formal training. McKenzie has achieved through intuition and observation what teams of trained scientists failed to accomplish through systematic research. The implications extend far beyond submarine warfare. If acoustic camouflage can hide ships from enemy detection, similar principles might apply to aircraft, ground vehicles, even stationary installations. McKenzie's accidental discovery could revolutionize military stealth technology across all branches of warfare. And so Thomas McKenzie, the cook who changed naval warfare forever, returned to his galley aboard HMS Starling, never receiving official recognition for saving thousands of lives. His acoustic camouflage system was classified, refined by engineers who got the credit, and deployed across the Atlantic Fleet. By war's end, convoy losses had dropped by 70%. McKenzie died in 1967, still officially listed as ship's cook, taking to his grave the knowledge that his insane idea with kitchen utensils had helped win the Battle of the Atlantic. Sometimes the most revolutionary breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places, proving that genius isn't about education or rank, but about seeing what everyone else misses.